when it is time to zone corruption or looting, they don't zone it to those regions. They don't say, well, it's the turn of the Southeast to just take all Nigeria's money for the next 4 years, 5 years.
Is that how you see it?
Yes. So what I would say conclusively is that if we are going to zone at all, we must zone power to the oppressed. You know, the class that is always at the receiving end of this badly delivered governance.
So
in the country.
which ethnic group do you see that fit in that description?
It's all of us.
So we will begin today's conversation taking our quote from George Bush, an American politician who served as the 43rd president of the United States from 2001 to 2009. He once said, "Use power to help people, for we are given power not to advance our own purposes, not to make a great show in the world, nor a name. There is but one just use of power, and it is to serve people." Interestingly spot on, you'd say, I'm sure. All right, then let's take our second quote, and this one is from Barack Obama, American politician who served as the 44th president of the United States from 2009 to 2017. A member of the Democratic Party, Obama was the first African-American president of the United States. He once said, "Change will not come if we wait for some other persons or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." Absolutely spot on. Now let's see how this relates to what we will be discussing today. Warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annabelle Oji. Now, less than 10 months to the 2023 general elections, a number of Nigerian politicians are being touted as messiahs that will take the country to the promised land after the tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari. As President Muhammadu Buhari's administration is winding down, another set of politicians is being positioned as the country's savior come 2023. Now, the politicians include some who have openly indicated interest to contest the presidential election, those who are yet to indicate interest in the office, and those who are being pressured or coerced to indicate interest. At the moment, patronage levels are high in the major political parties, and some of the candidates who have declared their intentions are said to have questionable political histories. Many are seen as the usual suspects, career politicians who have been eyeing the presidency for several years and believe they deserve the position. Now, you recall on February 25, 2022, President Muhammadu Buhari signed the electoral bill into law, paving the way for federal and state elections on February 25th and March 11, 2023. Political parties need to elect their flagship candidates by June 3rd this year, as the Amended Electoral Act permit parties to select front runners through direct, indirect, and consensus procedures. The elections take place against the backdrop of complex economic, political, and security challenges, and the outcome of the polls will have far-reaching implications that not only for Nigeria, but also the whole region, which faces political instability in the wake of several recent West African coups. For many Nigerians, the 2023 polls present an important opportunity for a change in trajectory. Most attention will be on the ruling party candidates, the All Progressive Congress as APC, the prominent opposition party that's the People's Democratic Party PDP, given their dominance of the political space, and the Third Force Alliance. Now, Our guest on the show today is Omoyele Sowore, Nigerian human rights activist, pro-democracy campaigner, former presidential contender in 2019, and present or current presidential aspirant come 2023. And he's also the founder of an online news agency, Sahara Reporters. We'll hit the ground running on this conversation in just a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we have our guest. He is Omoyele Sowore. He's a human rights activist, and he's also the presidential aspirant. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for bringing me again.
Great to have you. All right, now let's start first by getting up close and personal. Who is Omoyele Sowore, and how would you describe yourself in few words? What is it that the media, Nigerians, don't know about you?
I don't think that there's anything the media doesn't know about me,
Okay.
Except to say that I'm a Nigerian citizen, publisher of Sahara Reporters, which I'm sure you know, and an activist who has spent recently some time in detention, as well as most people don't notice that I've been restricted to Abuja for 3 years now by court order.
Okay. So how's it coming along?
I'm making the best use of it.
Oh, okay. We'll definitely get back to the court order. Now, so let's talk about human rights activism in Nigeria. Now, there's this school of thought that believes that only the human rights activists, they only scream Aluta Continua Victoria Asata when there is a particular thing that bothers them and everyone. And as soon as they get invited by this group of people, the people that they are working or fighting against, they come back to tell you that they've decided to sheath the sword, or they've decided to suspend either the strike or the whatever it is. And then for some people, they just believe that comrades or human rights activism only exists in the name, because we've seen these things happening. Human rights activists, they fight for something, and then when they get appointed into government offices, it becomes something else. What are your thoughts on that?
It's the reason why I sometimes feel uncomfortable addressing myself as a human rights activist, because I do not want to be grouped with the set of people you've mentioned. When people wake up one day and start addressing themselves as human rights activists, it's different from those who take it as a career, who take it as a cause. And it is up to the public to now see through those who are legitimate, genuine, and those who are doing it for the purposes of having the visibility that attracts them, either attention, funding, or positions. I don't belong to any of those categories, having done this for 32 solid years now, doing the same thing consistently, fighting the bad guys in power in this country, and taking time out to, reel out, work on human rights violations, getting people pulled out of prison, either as individuals or as a group, and engaging in advocacy for human rights. So there are different categories of this, but I'm not here with a Rolodex of people who are human rights activists in Nigeria. And that's why sometimes people joke, make a joke that it's not human rights, it's human rights, as in food, that attracts some of them to do what they do. But it's much more serious than just the label.
All right, then, now because you talked about the court cases that you had, now one of the recent judgment from a federal high court in Abuja, where Justice Obiora Egwato declared your arrest over the 2019 Revolution Now protest as illegal and ordered that you be paid the sum of 1 million naira. Now, how did that judgment come to you? Is that another confirmation that truly the court is the last version of hope for the common man?
It should naturally be. And there's a second judgment, by the way, within the span of 2 months. I think there was a judgment also of 3 or 4 months, also in December. Where court ordered them to return my phones illegally seized when they abducted me from Lagos to me. And they have not returned those phones to today. And they were also ordered to pay me 2 million naira and asked to also apologize to me in about 3 national newspapers They have not done that as we speak. So the courts must go beyond just delivering justice. There must be consequences for those who don't respect court orders or don't respect court judgments. And that is what is missing within our own judicial system whenever it works a little bit, even for the common man, as we like to say. It naturally should be the place where you can find succor, but because the system is very compromised and rigged against the majority of us, and because of corruption, and also the fact that the courts are highly politicized, you rarely get what you can call justice in these courts. And it's also unaffordable to a lot of people to go to court because it requires lawyers, heavy filing fees sometimes. And sometimes when you file your cases, you don't even get dates assigned to your cases for months. So the bureaucracy is killing social, economic, cultural, and even physical justice across board.
All right, because it is the month and in fact the week of women, Modern Sundays, you have Modern Sundays all across, and then what are your thoughts on women's participation in politics or in leadership, especially in Nigeria?
You know, I'm on the extreme side of women's rights, and I feel like I'm tired of women asking to be given their rights to be leaders or vote. I think they should take it. They have the population now. They have the resilience. They have the intelligence. I mean, if women can raise men, why can't they raise and manage a country? And some of us that are raised by our moms and dads, our moms participated more in raising a child. The question I keep asking women when they go and protest and ask for their rights from men is, what are you waiting for? You have the population. If women decide to come together in this country today and vote for a female as president, the person will win the majority of the votes. Because even if you look at our electoral politics, the people who are likely to participate in rallies, who will stand at polling units until the votes are, delivered and counted, are mostly women. The ones that are likely to mobilize for us, those who are into electoral politics or partisan politics, they're mostly women. But when it is time for leadership position, we now start talking about percentages. Or maybe if we give them 35%, it will sound just. Whereas in small countries like Rwanda, you have their parliament, 75% of the parliament is almost women, because they went out there and decided to take what belongs to them. It's the same thing I tell young people, that you should not be apologetic about participation in politics. It was the reason I was opposed to Not Too Young to Run, because why would you go and beg old people to allow young people who are 75% of the population to sign a document to let you be president, when you could just go out there and shut everything down until you become president, because you have the majority of the population. Shutting
everything down, does it include protest?
Yes.
But how far has protest gone, looking at all that happened even recently with the NSAS?
You see, the value of protest is not based upon immediate action sometimes. It is a set of actions and reactions that creates fear in the minds of the oppressive or the ruling class. That's what protest does. I am in and out of courtrooms a lot, in and out of police stations a lot, and I tell you that the Nigerian police will never recover from NSAS. They're dead scared that another NSAS could come. The people in power, the ruling party, is so scared of NSAS that whatever they do now is to ensure that there's no repeat of NSAS. How do you say that such a protest doesn't work? People in the US, they were just 12% of the population of blacks. They forced about 88% of their population to accept their rights to vote, equality, and several other things they enjoy today. But in those days when it was happening, they were being mocked. They used to call some of them all kinds of names. Some of them were called extremists, some were said to be too soft. They call them Uncle Tom, and so protest is not something that happens one day and you expect to have the results. That is why we ask that you intensify it if you want immediate results, and you put in more boots on the ground or more feet on the ground. and, more fist in the air.
Okay.
It works. It works. It's the most, powerful tool that the oppressed has to, engage the oppressors.
All right,
peacefully.
then. So now let's talk about the Amended Electoral Act that was signed by the president just recently after so much dilly-dallying. And then also let's talk about the contentious clause 84 subsection 12. How much will the new electoral law impact on Nigeria's future election and its electioneering process?
I'm aware that every time there's an election cycle, there's an electoral law or electoral act, whatever you call it. And this has never improved elections because it's people that conduct elections. Elections are not conducted by the laws governing them, it's conducted by the enforcers of the law. And even though the laws change from time to time, the enforcers, the administrators of these laws have not changed their ways. INEC is still one of the most corrupt, colluding agency of the democratic process.
Oh, really? So even with all of the recent elections that they have conducted, the Anambra State elections, the FCT, you don't have faith in the electoral umpire?
No, I don't.
Really?
Yes, the Anambra election was one of the worst conducted elections. It was a state election that was conducted over 2 weeks. Over 2 or 3 weeks. Participation was so low that you could tell that the faith of even the public in the electoral umpire has faded. And you look at it since the last 10 years, participation in elections have reduced, even though more people have registered, because they don't trust INEC, because INEC is a corrupt agency involved in election fraud. And some of their electoral officers, like you had in Rivers State, were caught red-handed, collecting bribe from Wike. One professor or two are undergoing trial. One of them actually was jailed in Akwa Ibom State, who was caught involving himself in rigging of elections. So it's not news to tell you that the Electoral Act cannot change elections except the people change those who conduct these elections. And you look at INEC and this composition right now, it has more card-carrying members of political parties, the major legacy parties, than it's ever had in the history of INEC that we know of. And does that tell you that this will be an unbiased empire when two parties are represented against others at the highest levels of the management of this organization?
All right, so now one of the many issues in Nigeria's electoral system that most activists have been fighting against is money politics. Now, if a particular political party intends to raise 1 billion naira through sales of its forms, for its convention forms, then you have different political parties, nomination forms are quite exorbitant. So how it automatically means that politics is not for the shallow pockets or the lily-livered. So how then would someone who doesn't have the money bag or has the big pocket actually run into politics?
It's the reason why we never supported just a few parties to be on the ballot for elections, because it's the multiplicity of these parties that actually define democracy. It makes people want to participate if there are several options available to them. So if you have your big money bag, godfather-driven party, and there are other parties that are principled, and they don't charge money, or they don't charge so much money for nomination forms, people who have better ideas but less money, or shallow pocket as you like to call it, will go to those parties and be part of them. But what you have now is that the moment a political party is different in nature, character, in thoughts from the two major political parties, they sponsor people to hijack those parties, or they find a way to deregister those parties. That's what INEC did, and was recently, unfortunately, validated by the Supreme Court. There used to be 79 political parties in 2018 and 2019 elections. We registered our party in 2018, and we participated in an election in ways that has never been seen before, to the point that they were so uncomfortable with us with me as a candidate, they won't allow me participate in the presidential debate. But eventually, our message got to everyone. And following that, they came after me, they came after the party. So as we speak, they are recognizing imposters in our own political party. And of course, we're going to resolve that. We're going to take our party back. We never lost the party. But I'm just explaining to you why the deep pockets don't like ideas, deep ideas. Because the moment those ideas are around, people will rush to wear their ideas and let them rot inside their pockets.
All right, so now let's talk about the debate on zoning. A lot of people are arguing that the power should shift to the south because some people say that the south have had their fair share, and then some say it should go to the north. And then some other people, the middle belt people, they feel that they have been marginalized, so they should be the one to take power at this time. So now, what are your thoughts on this? And do you think that the country needs to continue to adopt zoning?
It's one of the most pathetic things we have to live with or deal with on a daily basis. I think this also happens in every election cycle. And they will just bring in a buzzword that distracts everybody's attention from what is the most important quality needed of a leader, which is character, and several other great things. But when they discover that this is not going to work in their own interest, they throw zoning as a boon to us, and people will get distracted and be discussing this. Power has been zoned before to the north. What did Northerners get for it? Insecurity. Buhari has been in power for almost 8 years now. The north, where his zone, where he came from, is swamped in insecurity. Obasanjo at one time had power zone to the southwest. He became the candidate, won election. He couldn't construct a road from Lagos to Abeokuta, where he lives. As simple as that. Jonathan, who everybody said, well, this is the first time the third largest ethnic group in Nigeria became president. He was there for 5 years. What did you get? They are still stealing crude today. I hate to use the word stealing because it's their own, but Nigeria hasn't benefited from any of these political ideas that is retrogressive. How do you zone the presidency of a country to a particular region? What if there are no competent person? I'm not saying any region. All the regions have competent people. But what if the real competent people are not permitted or allowed to become candidates in those places? You end up with the same rotten political class members. When it is time to zone corruption or looting, they don't zone it to those regions. They don't say, well, it's the turn of the Southeast to just take all Nigeria's money for the next 4 years, 5 years.
Is that how you see it?
Yes. So what I'll say conclusively is that if we're going to zone at all, we must zone power to the oppressed. The class that is always at the receiving end of this badly delivered governance.
So which ethnic group do you see that fit in that description?
It's all of us. All of us.
All right then, judging from the skeletal elections that have been conducted by INEC, I know you said that you don't have faith in them, but then how would you actually rate their performance now? Since 2019, let's start with 2019 elections and projections into 2023. Do you think they've been able to revive Nigeria's faith in her elections and electioneering process? And what do you expect to see differently from the electoral empire, even as we look forward to 2023 elections?
You see, let's look at it from 2019. I participated actively in 2019 election. And I can tell you categorically that there was no election in 2019. It was a selection process.
Oh, really?
Yes. And when it was time, they just allocated numbers to people. They allocated me some numbers too, which is in no way representative of what people who were on the fields did for us. But let's forget about 2019 for a moment. Go to, later on in 2019. They conducted election in Kogi State. which was the election that everybody referred to as Tatata. They were shooting and killing people. A woman who was an opposition leader was burnt alive in her house. That's not election where there's intimidation, harassment, collusion of security agents to impose one man, Yaya Bello. There was election also, I think, in Bayelsa State. It was so bad that this person that won, his position was reversed by courts, I think, before he could even be sworn in. So all these irregularities and the fact that INEC, even in all these places, could not conclude elections at once for logistical reasons, which is their own fault, shows to you that INEC is not only manned by incompetent people, it's manned by corrupt people, because I know categorically that if INEC wants a candidate to win, they decide who should win, and they get heavily settled. Sometimes they drive around huge numbers of PVCs in their own vans, give it out, collect it back, so that elections are rigged in sometimes a little bit more scientific way, because I think they're tired of people carrying ballot boxes as they used to do before. Since 2019 that I came out, I've seen a lot of elections. Even our party participated in a number of elections, and there were non-elections. In Ondo State, where we participated in local government elections, which you can say is organized by the State Electoral Commission, but they're all electoral commissions, right? Before the election was ended, they had already announced the results of the election in Ondo State, Akure, the state capital. Local government elections that took place in places like Lagos is the same thing. Either the competent candidates are excluded for the sake of the ruling party, or violence.
Why would you blame the electoral umpire for all of this? You've seen that they've been trying to progress, bring in the beavers.
If there was progress, you look at the stats. If there is progress, it would show in confidence and participation. I just gave you some raw statistics now that less number of persons are participating in elections, progressively degenerating since 2019, for instance. In fact, and these figures are there to the point that number of persons that voted in Anambra election was probably almost 18% of the population.
But everybody knows that Anambra State, they always have this voters' apathy. So do you blame INEC for voters' apathy?
It's not voters' apathy. Even INEC, with the 18% people that voted, could not finish conducting that election at once. You know that. So it has become, inconclusive National Electoral Commission.
All right, now, so let's talk about you. So recently you declared your intentions again, since after 2019, yes, to run for the biggest position in Nigeria's political space as the next CEO. So what exactly stirred that decision again, and how would you describe the kind of support, reactions, and attention that you have been getting and you are still getting at the moment?
I didn't declare because I was looking for attention. I declared because I want to win and become Nigeria's president, to be democratically elected. And but it's fair to say that it's been a great amount of attention compared to the deep pockets, as you like to call them, who have declared and have been received with utter disdain and coldness from the public. And I'm not saying it because I'm the one who declared. If you saw footage of the declaration itself, it was a jam-packed hall in Abuja here. Despite the fact that upon hearing that I was going to declare for president, I got arrested. And after declaring, they arrested me again and tried to charge me for an offense I had nothing to do with or didn't exist. So, and after that, despite the fact that I'm restricted to Abuja, everywhere around the country is excited about my candidacy, and people have been talking about it. But interestingly, there has been some kind of blackout from the mainstream media. And I understand that, which is a discussion for another interview, probably in the nearest future. But where we have the most participation in media, which is social media, is buzzing on a daily basis regarding my candidacy, things I have to say. In fact, I am using old videos of 2019 to explain to people how clairvoyant our campaign was in 2019. and what they missed out by voting for the same characters that be destroying the country since the 1960. So what we're getting is huge amount of support, rallying around our ideas, and a spread that is faster than I personally expected. So it's just been amazing, I must tell you. But you asked a very important question. Why did I want to do this? It's because I know, and I'm not doubting myself, that I am the most competent person at this time. And it was the same in 2018, you know. And those who doubted me in 2018 saw what they voted for, or what was selected and imposed upon them, the most incompetent. You know, when it comes to character, I stand out differently from all these guys. I'm probably one of the few candidates at this time who has declared, who has never had to do government work before, never been a contractor, and never been engaged in any shady businesses in my life.
Okay, well, this court cases that you have, and then you talked about that you've been restricted to just Abuja. Does all of this actually bother you?
It doesn't. It is expected. It was expected even since 2019, when we ran such a powerful campaign that took us to 34 states across the country within such a short time, with limited resources. I didn't have a private jet. We're driving around, getting on buses, in some cases even getting into boats to get to voters. I knew that going by the way we carried ourselves very well and delivered our messages across the country very well and across all the population strata, that they were going to come after me. So, and they did. I even predicted this in Ibadan, which was my first town hall meeting, that they will come after me. But in coming after me, it has been a blessing in disguise. Okay. Because
let's go on this quick break, and when we return, we'll expand this conversation a little bit further. Don't move a muscle. What exactly is in your manifesto that is new, that Nigerians have not seen or heard before now?
We are very focused on changing the Constitution of Nigeria.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
We want to go after that fraudulent document, take it down, and let the people decide what the next.
So you're among the school of thought that believes this Constitution should be completely overhauled?
Yes, not overhauled, scrapped, and a new one put in place, emanating from conversations between all the component members of our society.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've missed quite a lot, but then you can still join in the conversation as we have our guest. He's Omoyele Sowore. He is a presidential aspirant. He is a human rights activist. He's a pro-democracy campaigner. Now, before we went on that break, we've talked about quite a lot of things. Now, aside, you talked about the kind of chair that you've been getting from people since you declared your intentions. So have the reactions been all cheery and positive, or are there the negative reactions, the backlash and the boos that makes you think that you might want to rescind on your decision?
No, I'm a complete Democrat, to the point that I accept praise the same way I accept condemnation if it comes to me. I don't even believe that people should constructively criticize me, because you shouldn't be there defining for people how to criticize you. So there's been criticisms of my declaration, but it has come from the natural quarters, which is those who are really afraid that my coming on may help change the course of politics against them. And these people have always been there as enemies. You know, even when I was detained, they were very happy that I was detained, even though I committed no crime. When I was released, they're the same set of people who sent police after me to attack me. My nose was broken in this Abuja after my release for engaging in peaceful protest. When I go to court, they sent thugs after me. I was almost stabbed one day when I move around to protest. The system policeman, I was shot in my thigh, I think last year. So they are the same people, and they also spend a good amount of money trolling me on social media, but I also troll them because it's part of the engagement and interaction we need to reset a lot of brains. Because some people are reluctant to learn, especially people in the political class, and they use some of these bullying tactics as a buffer between you and them. For instance, you've most likely never interviewed any of the major political parties' aspirants who have declared. They have not come to you, and they'll probably not come to you because they cannot have the kind of free-flowing conversation we're having now. If you talk to them for a few minutes, they'll crumble, they'll collapse. So they won't come here. But I've seen their representatives on TV, defending them. Why is it that Atiku is afraid to come to Annabelle Oji, to come talk about what he plans to do for Nigeria, apart from clapping at his declaration? Why won't Tinubu sit across from you, tell us specifically what he wants to do for Nigeria, apart from saying that it's a lifetime ambition to become president? I say the presidency is a family property or some kind of, inheritance for his kind of people. So why won't Peter Obi be out there talking about his programs? Because they have nothing to offer you, and when they do come, they want to control questions you ask them and how the questions are answered.
But don't you think there's still time? They still have ample time to do all of that?
Well, we have less than a year to go. If this was the US, there would have been debates now happening between some of these candidates that have declared, both at the party levels or even inter-party levels, or even people without parties. They'll be on TV, on radio every day. But the reason they don't come out is because they have nothing to say to the public. They believe that there's nothing money cannot buy, including the media, and they seem to be getting away with it. But that is changing now because there is now a social media department, that is part and parcel of this conversation. And we see that they're trying to also push their heads in that department. But that place is more of a level playing field than the mainstream media.
All right, then. Now, so let's talk about your manifesto. What exactly is in your manifesto that is new, that Nigerians have not seen or heard before now?
One thing that is new and very, very powerful is that the manifesto, apart from the good stuff about security, health, infrastructure, power, this time around, we are very focused on changing the Constitution of Nigeria.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
We want to go after that fraudulent document, take it down, and let the people decide what the next.
So you're among the school of thought that believes this Constitution should be completely overhauled?
Yes, not overhauled, scrapped, and a new one put in place, emanating from conversations between all the component members of our society, the working class, the ruling class, and the oppressed, the oppressors, as we may know them, women, girls, boys, retired persons, old and young, weak, challenged. Let everybody come and discuss what they want the Constitution to look like, and those who may not particularly like the Nigeria of today, some of them who have been asking out that they want to break away from Nigeria or be divorced from this terrible marriage. That Constitution needs to reflect their aspirations and desires in a way that the Constitution then travels around the country and then will determine the Constitution by way of a referendum.
All right, so now Nigeria actually needs someone who understands a little bit of everything at the moment. Now talk about security, her territorial integrity, technology, money, finance, even entertainment. Nigeria needs a director, a leader a builder, someone who has knowledge of everything and not a novice,
Yes.
who believes that he or she can leave everything to the hands of expert advisors or people who would help them fix things. Now, do you have these qualities, or you intend to grow in the job?
No, I already have demonstrated that these qualities are inbuilt in myself. You know, sometimes people don't know a whole lot about me, apart from the activism part. And part of it is because they no longer teach history in our schools. Otherwise, so many people knew me during the elections in 2019. And when, after the election, they saw that I was a student activist in 1989, they were like, wow, you know. When they saw that I was standing behind MKO Abiola in 1993, they were like shocked. When they saw that I led protests to disrupt the National University Games in 1998, they were like, wow. When they heard that I started a media company, having never been a journalist before, that became a global brand, they're like, wow. And then discovering that I could leave my comfort behind and come back to Nigeria and actually be prepared to die if it was necessary to protect the democracy that I fought for when I was a student when I started as a freshman in 1989. They said, wow. When they look at it and know that I'm a sports person, I've run in 8 marathons, they're like, oh, that's unbelievable. You know, when they look at it and found out that I actually have a family, you know, I've been married and have kids. Most people never thought I was until I was arrested in 2019. I discovered that I had a wife who was probably more brilliant than I was. So, and I'm just giving you a whole full spectrum to understand I know all of this. But, you know, the president of a country is not a robot and is not a machine that doesn't rest. He's also the chief human resources officer of the country, who can hire the best hands to work with him to do things that he may not be able to do. The president don't have to be the Super Eagles coach simply because he wants to be seen as an all-rounder. But the president can also be the commander-in-chief who visit troops on the front lines so as to motivate them, you know, bring them food, sit with them, see how they're doing. You know, the president can be not the minister of petroleum resources, but you can also be the chief electricity officer of the country so that light don't go off, because that's what is most important now. Or find the right hands, find the right ideas. It's more about the ideas and finding the right team to work with. Yeah, but you must, of course, have rudimentary, at the minimum, understanding of how does your economy work.
Okay.
Not that they will come and tell you that, you know, you have to borrow money from everywhere to pay salaries and pay for everything. Or that the IMF, a guy at the IMF just tells you, oh, for you to run an economy that works, you must remove subsidy, you must not fund education anymore, don't give children medicine or vaccines because that is too much investment in social, the social space. You have become a Father Christmas. But when their own economies are struggling, they're happy to give your doctors visas, your nurses visas to go and save their own people. If we didn't invest in those nurses and doctors in our universities, where would the UK find people to come and deal with COVID? That like they're doing now, you know, almost all the doctors have left because we trained them in the first place. But had we trained enough, when IMF said don't invest in education, there will be enough available to take care of us when those who have a right to live decided to leave, because this country is no longer a comfortable place to live. So the job of the president covers all of this.
Okay.
But the most important thing is that the president cannot be walking around with cotton wool stuck inside his ears.
All right, then. So you are actually running for the office of the presidency at such a time when insecurity has gone record high, at such a time when the economy is bleeding red, and then you talk about the precipitous depreciation of our national currency in relations or compared with other global currencies. Businesses are packing up, the youths are gone haywire, a whole lot. Few queues have been there for 9 weeks, still counting. You have electricity challenges. So it automatically means that anyone who will inherit that seat knows what he or she is going up against without, like I said, without coming with the excuse of inheriting empty treasuries or insecurity and all. Now, with all of this that is going on, how prepared are you on these issues, and what will you do differently to address all of this issue if you inherit them?
So you have to prioritize which are the problems to solve first. And the person who understands that best must also have the energy to follow through with those priorities. And my first priority, of course, will be security right now. And that is by being the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. I'll go to the front. You know, I will be the chief mobilizer, chief motivator of the armed forces. I will be the chief reformer of the armed forces, you know, so that they have the equipment, they have the motivation, they have the compensation they need to go out there and do their best for the country. I have been quoted as saying it for a long time, and now it has come to the attention of everybody that I was right, that the security challenges we are having has to do with the leadership in the security sector. They are businessmen. And as long as they are making money from insecurity, they can never be security. You know, on the economic front, one first thing we must do is to restore power, energy. You know, you cannot make progress as a country if you don't have electricity that can be switched on and off. Ours is permanently off. It has been like that. Even the small business sectors that drives huge, big economies around the world rely on electricity. So it will be my priority, big priority, to invest in that sector. And within 4 years, increase the wattage from the miserable 1,700 ITs as of today to 24,000. I've discussed that before, that it's about bringing together all kinds of energy mix. You know, why do you think the sector is down at this point? Gas is not being fired to the turbines that needs them in a lot of these electrical plants that are in place now. Why would anybody build electrical plants and not make provision for how it gets gas? You take your gas that is available to Europe to go and sell, the one that is needed at home, you starve them of gas. But beyond just gas and hydro, what else do we have? We don't have solar in the volume that is needed, and we have space to have solar farms all over Nigeria. Individuals are already growing solar panels on their roofs and are providing themselves electricity. Why is it that government is not interested in that? Why are we not using those mixes?
Well, a lot of people have actually argued that we don't have enough space for solar farms in Nigeria.
It's not true. It's not true. Sambisa Forest is controlled by Boko Haram right now. It's bigger than several states combined together. Do you know that? So how about we start by putting solar farms in Sambisa Forest instead of ceding it to terrorists to be tormenting the entire populace with it? It's not true. We have enough land space to grow solar farms and grow crops as well. But both can also assist each other, because what solar farms can do is to also provide opportunity for real modernized agriculture in a way that crops can be grown on the soil and crops can also be grown off the soil. Yes.
All right, now, so let's talk about other sectors of the economy, like education.
Yes.
where there have been several reports of out-of-school children, and then you have former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who said that if care is not taken, that this out-of-school children might be meat for bandits. Then you also have...
I don't know why they keep referring to all these failed leaders. They have already become bandits. Look at the history of the most brutal Boko Haram leader, Shekau. I don't know, most people haven't read about his history. I did, because I did a lot of reporting on him when I was actively a journalist in Nigeria. Reporting on Nigeria. It was because of the way he was born and raised that got him upset with the system. You know, he was sent to a Quranic school. He was abandoned there by the mom. And, you know, as he grew up and he was seeing affluence and wealth all around him, but he didn't benefit from it, he became disgruntled. And when he had access to a weapon, look at what he did to his country. Assuming when he was growing up, he didn't have to go through that, maybe he would have turned out to become a different person. I am not saying that offering him education or food or clothing growing up would have made him become a totality, because there's also a part of psychology in the way children grow up. You see white kids who grow up in affluence and they go and shoot up schools because they're messed up. But that number would have been completely reduced. So they're already recruiting out-of-school children. Some of them are used as suicide bombers because they don't have anything to live for. They're given the impression that they can die for something that will take them to a different space.
Now, when you have things like that, sorry to cut in there, when you have things like that, people like that, and then you also have tertiary institution, ASU is going on strike, they're still on strike, you still have the government schools are barely breathing under the knees of the private schools. Now, how and what will you do differently?
Is to prioritize funding for education. You understand? Let me give you an example. What I would never do as a president is to take out $2.5 billion of our resources, of our revenue or wealth, and plunge it into a one-man refinery because the guy is failing in his refinery construction. I'm mentioning Dangote now. Nigerian government, through the NNPC, is going to invest $2.5 billion in Dangote refinery to improve and increase the wealth of one man.
And then create jobs for Nigerians.
How many jobs will it create? You know, who told you they are
Isn't that going to at least reduce this pressure we have?
So
we're talking
you
about
tell me,
oil, fuel or crude oil exportation and importation.
You tell me, how much will it create jobs? How many kids will be off the streets if you spend $2.5 billion on education? The ASU strike will be over that same day, the day you promised that amount and they assure that you put it to use. We'll be building schools everywhere. You know, there's nothing wrong if a secondary school looks like this building. Yes. With all the resources you have, a studio, a basketball, indoor court, you know, a massive football pitch, swimming pool. Build your secondary schools like that. See how many people will be working in those secondary schools. See how many people will be working in the universities. If you invest it in the public sector, over 1 million people will be immediately employed. But if you invest in the private sector and private individual, his priority is to make profit. And he will not employ anybody that is not recommended by the people who send the money to him. But the public sector employs everybody because they are stakeholders. And they own the money anyways. It's not Dangote's money. So I will put that $2.5 billion that is available into our universities to build secondary school, pay teachers. I want to employ, at that point, 600,000 teachers to fan across this country to make sure that no child is left behind. But giving the money to one man, you have left your entire country behind. Okay. So, and that's just one instance. There was a minister, Festus Keyam, who went and bought cutlass, machete, and wheelbarrows for people. I think within a short time, he spent like 70 billion. Nothing was done. It's just, you know, something we heard over the TV. How many of those wasted efforts are out there? that shows that we don't have people who have the right thinking faculty operating in their skull.
Okay.
They just do whatever they like, and we keep telling ourselves, or we are challenged to analyze why we should not get what belongs to us, or why the right investment should not be made in the right people, which are the citizens of the country. So it's a question of priorities, it's a question of understanding your society, it's also a question of capacity. Our leaders don't have the capacity to think or implement anything. That's why this country is broken, and we want to fix it.
All right. All right, so now, even before we round up, now let's talk about persistency, consistency, and sustenance, going the full 9 yards. And how far is it for you? Because definitely very soon you get the bullies, you get the intimidations rather, you get the money bags throwing stuffs around. Do you intend to go in all out with this, or because like we've seen severally where you have politicians or aspirants come forth and then all of a sudden they say they're no longer interested, they decide to hang in their boots? What's it for you? Are you intending to go the whole 9 yards and not intend to sell your followers or something?
I've never been known to sell followers. And that's why I said to people who said, oh, if you say something you will be demarketed. I said, I'm not in the market. I'm completely following my vision or mission, and I know that it wasn't going to be easy. All right, everything I've done my entire life has always been this type. I was born in a village beside a lake, dead poor. I went from that village within a space of 30 years to the most populated city. I mean, not the most populated, but most popular city in the world. I lived in New York City, created a business there, and moved back to this place some 20 years later. That was between the time I entered the University of Lagos, 1989, and arrived in New York, 1999, and came back to Nigeria, 2019. You can imagine what my life has been, from one very obscure spectrum to the brightest. And so I've seen it all. I've seen exposure, I've seen education, I've seen how things work. I've lived in places where they say, as a matter of law, that every road constructed expires every 2 years. They must replace the asphalt. And I've also lived in a country where roads have existed for 50 years and the potholes have never been covered. So having seen all this, trust me, I think I can say categorically that I've seen the world for what it is. And I understand how it works better than most of these money bags they're talking about. They can throw whatever money they have at it, but I think consistency and just raw will triumph over the fluff that Nigeria has been in the last 60 years. And you can trust me that I would never back down, except if they take my life.
Okay. So now, taking a cue from that, our time is fast spent. Very quickly, I'm going to ask you 2 questions and I'd like you to take them in one breath.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people have said that what is wrong with Omoyele Sowore? Why is he always, you said you left your comfort zone and came to Nigeria, and whether or not you're being killed, you don't care. Yes. So some people have already said, why does this guy want to just be killed? What is he planning? Does he want them to kill him before he understand or realize his right from his wrong? So what is it for you? Is that what it is for you? That's one. And then secondly is, even as we're going into the big day, the 2023 elections, which is just months, politicians have started counting days already. So what are your biggest fears? What are your biggest challenges and your hopes as a presidential aspirant? Very quickly.
So, to the question about whether I want to get killed, it's not my intention to get killed. I hope to leave. But people should also understand that people do have ideas that they feel strongly about, that they don't care sometimes what happens to them in the course of carrying out these ideals. And maybe I belong in that category, but it's also important to let them know that even those who want to leave might end up getting killed by the same ideas that they're afraid might kill me, or the opposite of the ideas that I represent. So nobody can guarantee his own safety and life under a system that is as crooked as this. So I advise them to live for something so that they can die, you know, in the right way, happy that they live for something. That's number one. 2023, my greatest fear is that we may not experience a real election again. But my hopes are that my hopes are actually tampered with pessimism, you know, and it will be that, I put it this way, I expect the worst and hope for the best in 2023.
All right, then. We wish you all the best, even as you all look forward to 2020 elections.
Thank you very much for having me once again.
All right, so we have been chatting with Omoyele Sowore. He is a presidential aspirant. He is also a human rights activist. He is a pro-democracy campaigner. He is plenty things plus more. I'm sure you must have been rightly educated, informed, and entertained. I will definitely see you next time. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.